Chapter 14. Getting Rid of Tiger. Mom didn't have to worry about broken windows. Joey wasn't much of a pitcher, and Raymond still missed more balls than he hit. They spent most of their time chasing the ball or hunting for it in Mom's flower beds. Scott sat down on the steps and tried to figure out what he was going to say to Dad. Excuses like, I didn't mean to, and it wasn't my fault, or if it hadn't been for that rat Tiger popped into his head. None of these excuses was any good because he had meant to take the mitt, and it was his fault, so he couldn't blame it all on Tiger. The best way was to come right out and say, Dad, I took your mitt and lost it. Just thinking about it made the words stick in his throat. He wished he had never touched Dad's mitt. He wished. The screen door opened and Mom said, Scott, your friends are out in front. Smiling, Mom stepped out onto the porch. How are the ball players coming along? She looked over the railing and gasped. Raymond Forbes, get out of that flower bed this instant. Mom came flying down the steps past Scott. Boy, he'd never heard her yell at Raymond like that before. Scott hurried around the house. Rusty and Eric and Kev were in the front yard, and Tiger was with them. Scott bore down on him with his fist clenched. Where's the mitt? You better tell me, or I'll. Here. Tiger held out a brown paper bag. I told you I had to go get it. I was on my way back to the cave when I ran into these guys, and they told me you were here. You brought it? Scott took the sack, and he was afraid to look. What if the mitt was all soggy and dirty or stained so you couldn't read the names anymore? He reached in and pulled out the mitt. It was as good as new. Scott blew out a breath through rubbery lips. When you said you didn't have it, I thought you threw it away. Tiger smiled. I was so mad at you I almost did. Then I noticed the autographs on the back and recognized some of the names from my baseball card catalog. I figured the mitt must be special. It is to my dad, Scott admitted. How did you keep it from getting wet and dirty? He kept turning it over in his hands. I didn't take it with me. Tiger kicked at a tuft of grass growing out of a crack in the walk. I left it at home in my drawer. You mean we went to all those places for nothing? Kev cried. Why? Why did you do that? I heard you and Scott talking about the creek and the old house and the ghost cave during the game, and I wanted to go there too, but I didn't know where they were. I figured Scott wanted his mitt back bad enough to go after it, so I wrote those notes and followed you. Kev threw up his hands. Why didn't you just ask to come along? Tiger stopped kicking at the grass and looked up. Would you have let me come with you? Kev paused, thinking it over. No, I guess not. Not then, said Rusty, but we would now. You would? Tiger looked stunned. You'd let me go places with you all? Sure, said Scott, but you have to get rid of Tiger. No more looking mean and acting tough. No problem. Tiger looked relieved. I was only bluffing anyway. You can call me EJ or Woody. Hey, Woody, if you've got a baseball card catalog, you must collect baseball cards, said Eric. You got any to trade? Sure, lots of them. It's been a long time since I had anyone to trade cards with. The happy expression spreading across Tiger's face reminded Scott of the look on Raymond's face when he saw Joey at the front door. Raymond must have been a pretty lonely kid, too. Funny, he'd never thought of it until now. Anybody got any Darryl Strawberry cards to trade? Woody asked. They went on talking about baseball cards and going swimming out of the lake and about our bike trips and hikes they could take until Eric put his hand on his stomach. Time to go home for dinner, he said. Kev looked at his watch. It's almost 5 o'clock. Your stomach is right. I'll see you guys later. I have to go too, said Woody. Aunt Addie gets upset when I'm late, especially when Dad is out of town on a trip. Good luck, Scott. Rusty swung his leg over his bike. I'll call you later to find out what happened. Scott watched them ride away, still laughing and talking together. In spite of all the trouble he'd gotten into, some good things had happened in the last few days. Scott turned and walked back to the house. He still had a lot of explaining to do, but at least he had the mitt to return. That would make it lots easier. Hugging the mitt close to his chest, Scott sat down on the front steps and waited for Dad to come home.